I've hit record, so we're just recording. And we're not going to play a Walter's intro. We're not going to do all the other fancy fluff. This is a pure spring podcast. Josh, how you doing?
I am Durin.
All right. Well, we would like to, I've even forgot my own bit at this point. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Hidden Oaks Overdose Football Fix Podcast. I am one of your lovely hostesses, the Garlic Johnson. We are joined, as always, by our other lovely hostess, the Joshua Mitchell. Josh, say hi to the folks out there.
Hi, folks.
Beautiful. We've got a Discord. We would love everyone to chat in. We're gonna hopefully there's some draft chat going on. You can leave us voicemails, I think, via direct message on Discord these days, or also at anchor.fm/hoodpod. And I don't even think I mentioned the email anymore, so that's old school. But yeah, primarily we'd love people in Discord. We'd love people who can chat along with current events and as news breaks. Otherwise, you can leave us some voicemails sometimes if you want, either via Discord direct message to my account, Garlic Johnson, or anchor.fm/hoodpod. Segment start times will maybe be down in the description below. We'll see if I put in that much effort today. And thank you at Levi Oki for all the beautiful illustration that people can see, whether it's in Discord or wherever else. Josh, I'll ask you again. How you doing?
Durin.
All right, well, I'm happy to hear you're doing. It's been a long time. Let's break the fourth wall just a little bit here. Fans of the show may or may not know, but our friendship is completely fake and fabricated just for our on-air personas. And so I have no idea what you've been up to for the past, 4 months since we last been on air. So let's just, since I don't know what you've been up to because we don't talk because we're fake friends, what have you been up to the past 4 months? Let the fans know.
Yeah, so I appreciate it, Ganlick. See, I already forgot your real name.
Yeah.
I was actually just thinking about that. I was like, I think the last time I spoke to Garlic was actually at the Super Bowl party in February, and then I looked at the calendar and I was like, that was just yesterday, right? And nope. But usually we have some communication on Xbox, but there hasn't been a lot of gaming going on, at least multiplayer gaming. Got Asher. He's still around. Almost had to ship him off to boot camp or some sort of behavioral modification therapy sessions because I saw him with a soccer ball.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and we need to nix that real early. So like any good father would do, I pulled out the steak knife and I just went up to it and I just stabbed it. And I hung it up. I took the knife with the soccer ball still impaled, and I hung it above his bed so he knows. Aside from that, he's doing well. He's getting this whole walking thing down, and I had a proud parent moment when I picked him up from daycare, and I got an incident report. And the lady said that he's doing better, but now that he's walking, he's starting to if somebody's in his way, he'll just stiff arm him, and I had to brush a tear away and go, that's my boy.
Beautiful. And yeah, obviously I was just giving you a little rib because I was reflecting on that today as well. It's like, dang, me and Josh, it's probably good because you and I interact so much during the football season that we take a little reprieve, but I agree there has been zero gaming and a group setting or even just you and I playing stuff together. So we really haven't connected too much. When I texted you last week, I was like, I don't feel like I should just go straight into business with Josh, but I guess I was like, hey man, you want to make a podcast? The draft is technically next week. So I almost feel like it snuck up on me a bit. I don't know. How about you? Do you feel like this late winter? I mean, I can still see snow on the ground outside my window. I don't know what it's like down there in Big Lake, but it's I feel like the draft almost snuck up on me. How do you feel about the time between football season and now?
I do feel like it snuck up a little bit. There was a little bit of a kind of refresh when free agency started, and then for the 13 seconds that I was excited for it, I remembered I was a Packers fan, so then I just kind of went, it's another day. But then, it seemed to have snuck up. Not a whole lot of news going on. I mean, obviously there's some off-field things going on with different things, some movement of players, free agency happened, new coaches, but focused mainly on, the real world. Obviously working on the basement. We've got that shelled out pretty nice. Just gonna hang up some drywall here. Whenever Bob comes over to help with that. Softball starts in a couple days, I should say. I almost said weeks. Yeah. Gotta give a shout out to Brad since he is our captain of the co-ed league that Nikita and I have joined. I'm just extremely thankful that when he tried to ring us in, he said games start at 4, go until like 9. So we'll hopefully get a lot of early games. That's not the case. I believe Nikita looked at the first half of the schedule since they only release one half at a time. And we have all late games, except for 1 week. And I was observant to realize that Brad signed us up for the competitive league, not the rec league. So it's going to be, I told him to basically just get ready to get bent over. It's going to be 15 runs because these are tournament teams, and it's going to be 15 runs every single week. And we're going to maybe get 1 or 2, and it's going to be a blast.
I mean, as long as you know what you're getting into, as long as you're a fully consenting adult, it feels like everything's going to be okay. But no, that's fun, and I'm glad to hear you guys are getting back. You know, some of the hood is starting to reintegrate. Speaking of, this will maybe be a test. I guess some people know, some people don't. But I am moving back to the hood, so that'll be coming up. I think Jesse knows because I just happened to see him. Josh, you're finding out right now. Bradley would not know until right now, so we'll see if Bradley listens to this or not. That'll be a friendship test, Bradley. But yeah, no, I'm coming back to the hood. I won't be joining the softball league, but
oh well, okay. I just started your invite. I was finally able to handle crayons again, and you go ahead and break that news, and now I have to put the crayons away. No, you mentioned it last time we spoke.
I mean, I've been trying. It's been in the works for sure.
It's been a long process. It's been a long process, it sounds like. So does that mean the ranch has to get that confangled internet again?
Yeah, I'll be down there either this weekend or next weekend, and I'll just call up Comcast. There's literally a router in the house. I don't think it'll be a big ordeal, but I'll probably also upgrade the internet. So we'll see what all it entails. But yeah, he's gonna have to have the internet again.
Yeah.
All right, should we actually get into the podcast now, or do you just want to catch up for a good 30 minutes? I mean, I would enjoy that. I don't know if the fans would, but
I think that would be a great. Maybe integrate some, like maybe if we do like a 30-minute catch up and then like a 30-minute podcast, and then we like cut and splice pieces of the actual content into our catch up.
There we go.
Speaking of ketchup, that's like Asher's favorite food.
Really? Big sugar tomato guy?
Yep. No. Yeah, it's. I guess that's all right. That's kind of what I lived off of when I was growing up. I guess
at least
anything
getting
else
the cool like
you?
purple easy squeeze like bottles. You just get them straight Heinz red, tried and true.
Well, yeah, Heinz red, but we find some that's been on the shelf for a little bit longer and it's green, I guess.
adds some character to them. To answer the question of is there anything else new with me? Not really. I mean, again, it's been nice to have this little break, but also, I just continue to, realize like everyone is just, everyone's keeps getting a little bit older and families are starting, and almost everyone from the hood is either settling down or settled down at this point. So it's just like, everyone's more and more doing their own thing. And so it's just obviously eventually the quote unquote good old days were going to end eventually. But I'm just a bit aware of it now, but in the downtime. It's it'll be exciting to be back in the hood, and maybe that'll reinvigorate some of the juices of us playing COD together or doing whatever together.
Yeah, well, according to my doctor, I will always have the IQ of a 10-year-old. So
brother, I
will always be in the old days.
Shout out. All right. But no, nothing else new other than moving. I've been, like I said, working on for a bit. And so that's it's going to capture my month of May for sure. A little back and forth, move, clean the apartment, all the bullshit. But yeah, that's the irons I got in the fire right now. Let's move on here, Josh. What's our first bit that we've left in for the second year in a row?
Actually, I believe this is the third year. This is our annual reminder that we once had a segment that was titled "The Walters' Comedy Bit." The real comedy came when we decided that bit lasted long enough after just one episode. It's our annual time to reflect on that mistake. It's been 90 episodes. And since then, I feel like we've grown as a podcast to understand that anything that starts off with Walters's should not be a segment.
That's tough. It's tough for old Rye
but
guy.
we still love him. But yeah, then moving on, we've got some legal obligations to an organization known as the Skybusters. Gar, do you want to take this away, or did I just do enough of the mention of Skybusters?
No, I would just want to reemphasize. I mean, I will reemphasize two things. One, I do feel legally obligated to mention the Skybusters has sponsored the Fantasy Zone in the past. We took the Fantasy Zone away last year, so the Skybusters were sponsoring the Hoodlines. I will say, Josh, not to air dirty laundry on the air, but I will say the Skybusters have not re-upped their sponsorship of the podcast. So, I think I'll give them a couple more. Give him a couple more mentions, and then you're gonna have to play hardball or stop mentioning the name. But for now, I do feel legally obligated to mention the beautiful Skybusters, who have historically sponsored the Fantasy Zone, and who may continue to sponsor a future segment, or may go the way of Old Yeller. You never know. We'll move on, Josh. A little free agency. I know last year we had recorded some thoughts. This year we did not put in that effort. And again, I think I was just enjoying my peace and quiet there for a little bit. But we don't have any pre-recorded thoughts on free agency. So without looking back at what we hope was going to happen, let's just look back now. We're already a month past it. Any notable things in free agency for you? And because we care about the Packers and the Vikings, let's start with you and the Packers. What did they do for free agency? AKA, were they just napping the whole time? Did they even try?
Yeah, I don't think that they actually plugged in their phone to make calls. And that's kind of what happened. Obviously, they lost some big-time names. Alan Lazard to the New York Jets. Shocking. Dean Lowry, who is just a, athletic meat sauce look-alike. He went to Minnesota, per usual. The old wash-up, backups.
Washed up, huh?
Well, he is older. He was always been a depth guy more than anything. And then we lost Big Bob Tunyon to Chicago. So, I mean, it's kind of weird seeing two players go to the division, but then again, it's like, well, whatever.
I mean, in theory, that happens a lot. Like, those are the teams that know you most, right? Like, they see you twice a year. They're always watching, not always watching your film, but they're more exposed to it than the average scout or the average whatever. So, it is weird, but at the same time, it does happen a lot. Remember when Jared Allen was wearing a Bears jersey for a year? Wasn't that weird? Or am I misremembering?
I don't remember.
Maybe that was just a thing I did in Madden. Honestly, I have no clue. But we'll move on. So the Packers, I don't know. We can talk about it as well. The Rodgers trade just went through. How do you feel about that? It's technically free agency, I guess. The draft hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, I guess. It was one of those things where the writing was on the wall, similar to what the Devontae Adams move last year. Not necessarily, it sucks to see not a guy in his prime, but a player who's given so much to the Green Bay organization. Sucks to see him leave. At the same time, I do feel like the return was pretty solid. Moving up 2 spots in this draft, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but we jumped ahead of New England, who has very similar needs as Green Bay at this time. So like an offensive lineman or a wide receiver, both of those are being talked as potential picks. Both of them would be to spite Aaron Rodgers because the Jets are trashy O-lines, so they need an offensive lineman. So drafting one from Green Bay, taking one off the board would be just kind of like a and then taking a wide receiver with the first pick in the draft with their first round pick in a draft that he's gone after 16 consecutive years of no first round skill position players aside from Jordan Love. That would be kind of funny. I think the deal worked out well for both sides, and the incentive, or not the incentive piece, but the 65% compensation if he turns into a first next year. Obviously, if he plays 65% of the games, they're hoping to be a playoff team. If not, then hell yeah, brother.
Right. Yeah, I think the trade does seem more fair than I think a lot of people. Like, I think Pat talked about it today or yesterday. He was like, both sides seem to think that they fleece the other team. So that's kind of how like both fan bases approve. Everyone kind of thinks it was a win-win all around. So, the best player, quote unquote, goes to the Jets, and then the Packers essentially get a first swap, go up 2 spots, and then pretty much get a first next year. We're all assuming it's a first next year. So,
and a second this year.
Right. And from a personal standpoint, I definitely think the Packers got more than they would have. And so, I think in the Jets position, they're kind of willing to pay whatever, like the fuck them picks approach. But I do want to give the Packers some credit. They definitely got more than I thought they would. I think them getting anything for Rodgers would have been a win. And so seeing the haul they got, I'm like, dang, all right, Packers, I respect that for sure. I don't like saying that out loud. You'll never hear me say it again. But I was surprised to see how fair it ended up being versus just like because I thought the Jets had all the leverage, but I guess I was wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that. Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about, well, both subreddits are just absolute toxicity about leverage. Correct. I got so sick of seeing the memes because neither team had the upper hand in leverage, because one of two things would happen. Rodgers doesn't play, or Rodgers plays for the Jets. And the Green Bay, so it's like, okay, Green Bay, the Jets needed a quarterback, so their leverage is literally just, okay, we could either trot Mike White or Zach Wilson out there again, or we could give up some picks to get a guy who wants to play for us instead of watching him sit and do nothing. So it's just like, okay, neither team had leverage. I don't think that there was really anything that would have worked out to fleece the other side, unless Rodgers pulled the whole retire for a year, come back. But even then, he'd have his contract under Green Bay. I'm more happy that the cap hit is gone the next two after this year. And that was kind of a shock that the money worked out that way.
Yeah, it's interesting for sure. But yeah, I mean, well, I know we've already put a lot of Packers talk in there, but I just feel like there's a lot to cover. So like just one more thing and I can move on to talk about the Vikes, but like it is now the Jordan Love era. How do we feel as a Packers fan? Just quick, like how do we feel? Do we think that it's finally Gutekunst and LaFleur are finally getting to implement their full vision? Do we feel like maybe Rodgers was propping them up? Like realistically, I know you're going to say like, oh, we've got our third back-to-back Hall of Fame QB. If you could try and like pull that back for a second and just be ultra raw and vulnerable and realistic, what do you generally feel as a Packers fan? Like, what do you think?
Well, I think we've got our third I'm just kidding.
Shut the fuck
up. Honestly, it's kind of hopeful. It's like cautiously optimistic, I guess. Obviously, the year he was drafted, you hear all the things coming out of camp that he couldn't hit the ground if he aimed at it. He, had some accuracy issues, and then the year after that kind of developed into his own. The whole draft and sit behind the starter for 3 years is not something that's done too often, if at all. The last, and then there was some comparisons of Mahomes sitting for a year behind Alex Smith and then playing and then showing signs that it kind of clicked at the end of his rookie season. And that's why he got that week 16 or 17 start, whatever it was. There were some talks of that. I'm not saying he's going to be Patrick Mahomes. I'm not saying that. But there were talks about him having it clicked. Rodgers said he developed quite well. I do think that when he went in against the Eagles and showed some sort of, ability to drive down the field, even if it was more of a garbage time look, it's still some ability to drive down the field. So cautiously optimistic, 19 wins with a Super Bowl.
That sounds pretty nice. I mean, don't you need
at
least one more win, I think, in that equation?
Well, 18-1 in the regular season. He'd lose week 1, and then he'd turn to his team and, like the janitor with his broom, say, "Never again."
Gotcha. Okay.
No, honestly, looking back, when Rodgers took over from Favre, his first year as a starter, he went 6-10. So it's not like Rodgers came out the gate hot. And so it's just he needs to get some development as far as starting with game situations and things like that. So, if he comes out and it's a 500 team, I think that's a win for his first year as a starter.
All right, hell yeah! I think that's a very fair and reasonable take, and I hope a lot of the Skull Nation that listens to this podcast almost exclusively appreciates your level-headedness there. I will move on to talk about the Vikings. I didn't have a lot of notes here. Like, the Vikings have been pretty much cap crunched for a while, and I know a lot of people when we got rid of Zimmer and Spielman, and we hired the Camcock. A lot of people were expecting, or not, I shouldn't say expecting, but a lot of people were hoping for a full teardown and rebuild. Whereas Kwesi has come in, like, he's more analytically driven than maybe Spielman was. Although I would say Kwesi is more of the same than something completely new, and I like Spielman, so that doesn't bother me. But it's definitely. We're certainly not in any sort of tear down mode. We're doing the void years. We're pushing contracts down the road. We did cut some veterans like Adam Thielen, Eric Kendricks, P2. He wasn't a longtime Vikings veteran, but he was on the team for the past 2 years. So certainly some turnover is happening as we kind of expected. Dalvin Cook seems like he's going to be gone. I want Dalvin Cook to stay badly. I think Dalvin Cook is a game changer. I think you can attribute at least 3 of the wins. Couldn't have happened last year without Dalvin Cook, which puts us to 10-7 versus 13-4. But yeah, definitely things are changing, but are they changing dramatically, significantly? I don't know. I don't know about all that. And so, I don't know. I'm sure you have some. And then we signed like Davenport and some cornerback from the Cardinals. But we don't have a lot of cap space, and we only have 5 draft picks. And so, there's been some talk circulating that I think is absolutely complete BS, but there has been speculation the Vikings are going to try and trade all the way up in the draft if they can. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's realistic at all. It's possible. I always think it's cool to take a big swing. I don't think we're going to do that. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if Kwesi is going to be more of the old guard, which I know a lot of Vikings fans will be upset with. But I think he's trying to do the best he can to get a team on the field. The big question will be, is Kirk going to be on the team after next year or after this year, whatever the last year of his contract is, before the voidable years? So I think this will be Kirk's last year based on everything we're seeing so far, but maybe something changes. But yeah, the whole talk was supposed to be about free agency. I don't know. We did a couple things. Some old players left. We got some new players, but couldn't do anything overly splashy because of our cap crunch. But yeah, I don't know. Josh, you obviously are surrounded in it all. Do you want to opine on any Vikings things? Because I'm much less plugged into the Packers than you would be to the Vikings. But if you would like to talk about the Vikings, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of the things that you'd seen. Maybe the... I guess I haven't. I kind of like last year. I just kind of took a whole break from a lot of different social media when it comes to off-season football because it just doesn't make sense at times.
Yep.
And so now that we're getting closer to the draft, it's the lying season, and so the Vikings getting up to 2, they'd have to give up almost all of their assets because the jump from 23 to 2 is not a little one. And so I guess I don't know what people are thinking. I don't know if you'd seen any mocks on that.
No, I think it literally just stems from like one tweet. You know how like one person has a tweet and then a lot of people start talking about this one like random tweet from an absolute nobody, and then people start to justify it by like, hey, a lot of people are talking about this. It's like, well, you're really just self-fulfilling your own like media narrative here. And we all know draft season is like smokescreen season. So I don't think there's any genuinity to it. But I suppose if you give up enough, like you give up your next 4 first-round picks, like anything's possible, but I don't think it's realistic at all. I don't think even the Wilfs would be down for something like that, honestly. So,
yeah, and you only have 4 picks this year, don't you?
I think it's 5. I believe it's 5, but it could be 4. I think maybe it was 4, but we were supposed to get like a compensatory pick, which obviously would have been awarded by now, but I really don't know off the top of my head, to be honest.
Okay.
But yeah. All right. So, go ahead.
Just, yeah, and then I guess if you guys were to make that jump all the way up and trade for a guy who's afraid of milk, oof.
Don't you put that on us. Yeah, well, we'll see. I think the most realistic scenario is the Vikings trade back. Otherwise, we're getting mocked Hendon Hooker a lot, which I wouldn't hate if we just sit back. I think we could probably trade back and still take Hendon Hooker. With all the smoke Hendon Hooker's getting, I don't know. We'll talk about the draft in a minute, actually. But I think we could probably trade back if we can stay in the first and still get Hendon. But otherwise, I think the Vikings trade back no matter what. New coaches in the NFL. Sean Payton headlines the new class. I think last year or 2 years ago it was like 13 brand new head coaches. This year's only 5. Sean Payton, certainly the biggest name. He's back. D'Amico Ryans, who I know is a really hot up and coming candidate. He went to Houston, so he's got a challenge ahead of him there. Shane Steichen, the offensive coordinator from the Eagles, is now the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. We'll see what he can do, and if they get a quarterback they can groom, or if they take a year off and then aim for someone big next year. John Gannon, the defensive coordinator of the Super Bowl loser Eagles, he is now in Arizona, replacing Cliff Kingsbury, and the retread Frank Reich, who had gotten fired from Indy just last year, is now the head coach of the Carolina Panthers. And they have the number 1 pick, so they get their pick of the litter. Well, we'll see what they do, and we'll talk about the draft in just a moment. But Josh, any personal thoughts on the coaches themselves before we move on?
No, I just really wish I was a fly in the wall when Sean Payton walks in and goes, "Russ, get your head out of your ass."
Think he'll say it just like that?
Probably. No, I actually, so I know that Sean Payton is a very sour name for most Minnesotans because he was a Saints head coach for a long time.
People got to move on, man. Fucking bunch of babies. But I agree, you're right.
I mean, yeah, people just he's not a bad person. He's got a great live movie based on him on Netflix. He is funny to listen to, and I guess his shoe game's just phenomenal.
That's all that matters, really.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we will move on then, Josh, to the kind of the meat and potatoes, our pre-draft thoughts, and then remaining off-season outlook. I don't know, that's kind of a mouthful, but starting with our pre-draft thoughts, we're even going to give that a grain of salt, Josh. I don't know if you have it pulled up. I put a link there. I assume that's the right doc from last year. I guess I didn't look at it too hard. But before we talk about what we expect and we mock out the first round here, how did we do last year? Did we do good? There are our draft predictions and our draft grades, all the things that bullet point is referring to. I'll let you take that away, or at least to initiate, and I'll follow your lead.
I don't know if we did grades or anything. I pulled up that sheet a while ago, and I know that, I've got the first couple right. It looks like. I don't remember how the draft necessarily shook out. I definitely had Breece Hall going to the Bills. That was wrong.
So you're saying is we did real bad.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's good at this. I think like 30%, like the professionals, like the experts, Mel Kiper stands in front of the mirror for 364 days of the year. And then on the 365th, he comes out with his hair finally done right and gets 30% of them right. So it's like, all right. Yeah. I mean, the Vikings, they took a corner, didn't they? At some point? Or no, they traded back with
we
the
traded
Lions
back and took a safety. Correct, yep.
Who exploded on the field.
Bro, that was rough. He had to stay in London for a while, poor guy. Apparently he binged like 5 seasons of Naruto or something.
Interesting. The Packers had 2 first-round picks. I had them taking a wide receiver and a D lineman. They did take a D lineman, but they also took a linebacker with a temper problem.
Classic.
I had Jameson Williams going 26th to the Titans. He went like 10th overall. So, oh well. You live, you love, you lose.
Yeah, the biggest experts I think can get what players will be in the first round pretty good. Like they could probably get 25 to 27 of like what players will go in the first round, but predicting where they're going to go into who and with the as trades is like a variable. It's always so complicated. So yeah, to get the accurate pick and I think that's pretty difficult. So no one's going to be good at it, but we are especially bad, I guess is what the moral of the story is, to take from us going forward. But nonetheless, we did mock out the first round. You did a more comprehensive job than I did because I'm a lazy piece of shit, but yeah, we are bad. Without further ado, though, Josh, unless you have any other thoughts, do you just want to get into mocking the first round, or do we maybe want to... do we just want to get into mocking the first round, or do you have anything else you want to chat about real quick?
We can get into it. I guess I don't have any issues with doing that.
All right. Well, we'll hop right into it, Josh. The very first pick in the draft, as we alluded to earlier, the Carolina Panthers traded up, gave a king's ransom to the Chicago Bears to trade back to 9. A lot of people say Carolina Panthers gave up too much for that pick, but if the Carolina Panthers get their starting QB for the next, 10 years, even 7 years, who really gives a fuck? 5 years would be good at the rate the turnover is these days. So who really cares? But Yeah, Carolina Panthers are on the clock. First overall, Thursday night. Probably 9 p.m. by the time all the bullshit happens. Who they taking?
Well, it depends on whether or not they can get the booster seat into the draft, but I believe that they will be taking Bryce Young, standing at a whopping 5'4", 3¼ inches. No, I do. I mean, yeah, size. You look at the quarterbacks that are successful; they're tall. They can see over the offensive line. Bryce Young, not necessarily tall. Probably can't see over most offensive lines. But from what I understand, he's like a savant when it comes to football knowledge and like just ability to read defenses. So they're saying his size is just kind of like a nah, brah. So him going one, I do think like I did more of a position pick and then the player that I think they go with. And I do believe that Carolina, regardless, goes with quarterback. They have to for what they traded up with. And so it's either Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson or CJ Stroud. Those are the top 3 picks as far as quarterbacks go. But yeah.
Which of those top 3 do you think would be the most surprising?
Probably Anthony Richardson. Just because his ascension into the top tier of picks ended up being mainly due to his combine ability. So he was an underwear legend.
He's very raw, but with a lot of athletic ability.
Yeah, so I think that that would be the biggest surprise there of those 3.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I also mocked up as well. But again, I did not put in nearly as much effort as Josh, which I don't know how much Josh put in, but I put in way less than that. But I also have Carolina Panthers taking Bryce Young first overall. Second, Josh, Houston Texans. They're a pretty QB needy team as well. This pick is theirs. They didn't have to trade for it. They legit got the second pick in the NFL draft because they're that bad. A lot of speculation on what they're going to do. They could go quarterback. They could punt and just tank and go quarterback next year. I have them taking Will Anderson. I think that's a little more sexy. I think either like Case Keenum or Dougie Mills or some journeyman comes in for a year and they don't try very hard and they try and get their quarterback next year. But because this class overall, this draft class is like not very good. Even the quarterbacks are not very good. Better than last year, but that's not saying much. But I have them taking Will Anderson. What do you think the Houston Texans will do?
Yeah, I have them taking another quarterback. This is where I think they take Anthony Richardson, understanding that their team is in a rebuild for the next few years, so giving him time to start as a rookie and then kind of build on that. I do think that when I did make this pick, I didn't necessarily, you say I put more thought into it than you, but to be honest, I probably didn't. I literally typed up Bryce Young yesterday and then the rest of the names in a 10-minute span today. So I didn't spend too much time on it. But I do know that the Texans need a QB, and I do think that if they don't, my main prediction is that they trade, but who likes some mock trades? That's stupid.
Right.
I would not be surprised if they traded out of the second. But I see them going with the QB, and since they know that their team is doo-doo pants, they'll likely, they could go with somebody who's a little bit more raw to give them time to develop in a system behind or not behind, but with a veteran that's willing to coach them up.
Rock on. Moving on to Arizona Cardinals. We'll go quicker as this goes on, but the first couple picks are what everyone cares about most and what will inform the rest of the draft. So if we get these right, we're much more likely to be right in the future. But Arizona Cardinals are third. Kyler Murray might miss the whole year, certainly going to miss some time at least. Some people have speculated they could even go quarterback to hedge their bets, and maybe they try and trade Kyler once he's healthy. Or, there's a lot of moving pieces there. Most people don't have that, but that's probably the sexiest piece there. The Arizona Cardinals also a good trade candidate. But Josh, what do you have the Arizona Cardinals doing here, since we're not mocking a lot of trades?
I have them going Will Anderson. I think that if the Houston Texans don't take Will Anderson, nobody leapfrogs them to get him. I do think that that'd be kind of a no-brainer considering J.J. Watt's gone. They do have Kyler Murray, and then they know that with him missing most of the year, they're likely going to get another high pick next year that they could use on a quarterback that's coming out of a better class. So that's going to be something that I would think that they're considering. Because my big brain has known football a long time too. But this is where I have them taking Will Anderson to kind of set the edge.
All right, I have them taking Tyree Wilson because why not? Defensive guy, they need some defensive help. That makes it sexy. Indianapolis Colts are on the clock next. Josh, what are they doing and why?
They're taking a quarterback, trying to end that curse of the last 4 years. And so the best one available on mine is C.J. Stroud. So Ohio State guy, for Brian, if he's still listening, probably not.
No.
And so C.J. Stroud is kind of who I think that they'd go with. I wouldn't be surprised if they went with the Derpy White, Will Levis as well. But I think that C.J. has. There's been a smear campaign going around for the last few days, and I think it's because one of the teams early on want to take him.
Right. They want him to not be, within the first 3. They want him to fall just a bit to get the Colts. I think that makes a lot of sense. I also have C.J. Stroud going. The only interesting part is that C.J. Stroud is your 3rd quarterback off the board, whereas he's only my 2nd. And so I have, quarterback, defense, quarterback. So we'll see how the NFL draft falls out. But we both agree that C.J. Stroud is a stud, and the Colts are likely to take him if he's there. Josh, Seattle Seahawks next. What are we doing?
This is offensive line. They're going to go with Paris Johnson Jr. So they're going to shore up that offensive line for the quarterback of the future, Geno Smith.
All right, I have them taking Devon Witherspoon. They don't necessarily need him, but when you can take a potential generational talent, maybe recreate another Legion of Boom, I think they just might. Josh, number 6, the Detroit Lions Seattle Seahawks had the pick from Denver in the Russell Wilson trade. Number 6 is the Detroit Lions. They got this pick from the Rams. The Rams never expected this pick to be as high as number 6 for the Lions, but it is. Who are the Lions taking?
I have them going with somebody, Joey Porter Jr., cornerback, somebody that's going to help out their defense a little bit. Their defense last year was struggling. They do need a D-back, so they might move somebody who's playing corner over to safety, or Joey Porter Jr. might play safety some. But you can never have too many cornerbacks in the NFL.
All right, I have Detroit Lions taking Jalen Carter, easily the best defensive tackle in the draft class. Moving on to Las Vegas, the Vegas Raiders. Who are they taking, Josh?
Cornerback Christian Gonzalez, just because on my sheet that I looked at, he was the next best available for cornerbacks.
All right, I have the Vegas Raiders being a little sexy. I have them taking Will Levis, my 3rd quarterback off. He's going to sit behind Jimmy Garoppolo and learn, but it seems like McDaniels would be a kind of guy who would like a Will Levis type player. So I think they might just, they'll probably reach a bit realistically. They could probably trade back and get Will Levis later, but I think they'll take a quarterback to groom because Jimmy Garoppolo is not a long-term answer. Moving on to pick number 8, Josh. Atlanta Falcons are on the clock. Who are they taking?
They're going to take Tyree Wilson, 2nd best edge rusher in the draft. Fell down to them. They have a need.
I have them taking Christian Gonzalez, the guy you had the Vegas Raiders taking, because they also need cornerback help. Josh, moving on to the Chicago Bears. Number 9, they got this pick from Carolina. They have decided that Justin Fields is the QB of at least the immediate future. Who are they taking?
Offensive lineman, Peter Skoronski.
I have them taking the best tackle in the class, Paris Johnson. Josh? The Philadelphia Eagles got this pick from the New Orleans Saints. Number 10, who are they taking?
Well, I think that they have a litany of running backs, even though the sexy pick for them would be Bijan, who please some fantasy owners. Jalen Carter is who I have, one of the better defensive linemen in this draft.
I think that's a very sensible pick, but I went sexy, Josh, because this is a podcast and I like to be exciting. The Eagles could definitely trade back from 10 and still get Bijan, but I have the Philadelphia Eagles being confident in their choices. We need running backs to climb up the boards again and not just be second-day people. I have Bijan Robinson going 10th overall to the Philadelphia Eagles. Number 11 is the Tennessee Titans. Josh, what do they need and who are they taking?
They're going to take a wide receiver, Jackson Smith and JSN, because Green Bay wants him, just like Green Bay wanted Treylon Burks last year and decided to pass up on him. And so, therefore, Tennessee Titans will take a wide receiver again, even though they suck.
I have the Titans taking Peter Skoronski, the guy you had going a little earlier to Chicago Bears, because they also pretty badly need some O-line help, so that's who I got. Josh, here we go. Oh, never mind. The Houston Texans are number 12. They got this pick from Cleveland in the Deshaun Watson trade. Who are they taking?
They're going to take an edge, Lucas Van Ness, Iowa guy. So, he brings us lunch pail. So their defense was pretty stout. I think that they're going to get him.
I have at number 12, I have the Houston Texans taking Anthony Richardson. I do foresee a bit of an Anthony Richardson fall. I think his draft stock rose too high to the public's perception during that the underwear Olympics. I think realistically he's not going to go top 10 in the NFL draft. I think he could fall even further. But I thought it was cool that both you and I have the Houston Texans taking Anthony Richardson. But in my draft, they have, they can get him at 12, a nice little discount, and they can add Will Anderson as well. So I have Anthony Richardson going 12th overall to the Texans. Josh, here we go. Your not hometown team, but the fandom you choose, the Green Bay Packers, newly acquired from the Jets. Who are they taking and why?
Well,
feel
they need
free to be
safety.
a little longer if you'd like, because
they need a safety, a tight end, and a wide receiver, and so it's clear that they're going to go with an edge rusher in that situation. Nolan Smith, I believe, out of Georgia, he is going to join his two former teammates from the first round last year, who the Green Bay Packers took, and so the Green Bay is well on their way to becoming the Green Bay Bulldogs. Yeah, I do. I mean, I've heard a couple other things that made, I think that, it's very possible that they trade up to 10 as well. So they'd use a 13 and a couple other assets to move up to 10. So then they can leapfrog two wide receiver needy teams to get JSN. That would be big splashy move, but that's never going to happen. So I wouldn't be upset with Nolan Smith because Rashawn Gary is our edge rush. He's out. He might miss most of next season, if not all of it, because he tore his ACL late in the season. And so they need somebody to fill that role immediately unless they want to give up 40 points a game.
All right, I agree with you that the Packers are going to take someone they don't need because the Packers, if anything, have proven themselves in the recent years to just take picks. At least, if nothing else, you question in the moment. You're just like, why are the Packers doing this? They have all these other needs that seem to make sense. Like, why are the Packers doing what they're doing? The Packers very clearly march to the beat of their own drum, so I have them taking Lucas Van Ness, edge rusher out of Iowa. Josh, New England Patriots, some people are saying Billy B is dead. I will never say that, but they're on the clock at 14. Who are they taking?
I actually scrolled down a little bit to find this name, but Broderick Jones, offensive line. They need offensive line help, and that name just kind of screams Billy B.
I agree with you, actually. A couple of the places where we agree, I think Broderick Jones makes a lot of sense for the Patriots, and so I also have the Patriots taking Broderick Jones at 14 overall. Moving to 15 overall, the Jets just moved back 2 spots in order to acquire 4-time MVP Aaron Rodgers. What are the Jets doing with their 2 slots back, Josh?
They're going to take Brian Branch, safety. I do think that it's funny that oh God, it would be so perfect if Green Bay drafts a wide receiver with the pick 13 and then Aaron Rodgers' new team drafts defense, just like he's dealt with every other year.
Just fuck you, buddy.
But they don't need skill positions because that skill set is pretty solid. But yeah, Brian Branch, safety, help that defense out even more.
I just want to give one quick shout out. They don't really need it because whoever matters will hear this, but I do want to shout out the Jets have been doing really well in the drafts recently. So I think whoever they pick, they're going to be a really sneaky good pick. I have them taking Darnell Wright just because I had to make them take a player. I honestly think that the Jets are a sneaky trade back candidate because I think a lot of the good O-line and D tackle candidates are gone by then, and safeties almost never go that high unless it's a real generational talent. And I don't know that I've heard that about Brian Branch. So I think the Jets are actually a sneaky further trade back candidate and acquire some more draft capital either for this year or next year. But we're not mocking trade, so I have them taking Darnell Wright. Josh, moving on to the commies, number 16 overall pick, Washington Commanders. What are they doing?
Devin Witherspoon, who you had going 5. I think that he's gonna end up there based on need.
All right, well, I have the person that you had going over 6. I have them taking Joey Porter Jr. So we both have them taking a cornerback. We just disagree on who will be coveted more in this draft class by who. But they're both really good corners, and they're going to teams that need them, so it makes sense. 17th overall, Eric, shout out, Latvia go crazy. Pittsburgh Steelers are on the clock last year. I know I had mocked them trading back, which they didn't. They sat pat, and they took Kenny Pickett. That was last year, right? What are they doing this year, Josh?
I had them letting the clock run out and forfeiting their pick.
Classic.
But since we're doing a mock and we're not that dumb, I had them taking cornerback Deontay Banks.
Easy with the wee, pal. I am definitely that dumb. I have them taking Emmanuel Forbes. Josh, moving on to pick 18, Detroit Lions are on the clock yet again. All this reaping from the Matthew Stafford trade. They had their pick earlier from that trade and now their own pick. What do you think the Lions are doing?
They're going to stick to the big, scary white tight end that they've made known in the league, and they're going to draft Michael Mayer. And so, yeah, tight end.
Yeah, I followed your inspiration there. I saw that pick out of you, and I was like, I really like that. They're going tight end. They have to replace, or at least attempt to replace T.J. Hawkinson. Some people are questioning if a quarterback falls to this pick, that the Lions could go with Will Levis or Anthony Richardson if either of the top four tend to slide a bit. So that'd be interesting to see if that were to happen. I know I speculated Anthony Richardson could fall, so maybe he could go here. Not that they need it, but I have them taking Dalton Kincaid, just a different tight end out of Utah. That's why I have the Lions taking. Josh, number 19 overall, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What are they doing?
Offensive lineman Osiris Torrance. Sounds like a Trailer Park Boys.
Awesome name, honestly. Maybe the best name we've seen so far. I have them taking the safety you had going earlier, Brian Branch. 20 is the Seahawks, Josh. Their second first-round pick as well. What are the Seahawks doing?
I have them helping out in the skill position, going with Zay Flowers, wide receiver.
I have them going with JSN, my first wide receiver off the board. For whatever reason, I feel like... I don't know. It's not going to be as highly valued this year. Some teams might trade back. Also, with that, some teams might trade forward because JSN is the kind of universal top prospect, unless you're the Raiders who just love speed, a.k.a. Henry Ruggs. But, I have them taking JSN. Josh, the Chargers, at least my second team, your second or third team, the LA Chargers, who have really, really adopted the all-in concept. This year is really a do or die for them. What are they doing with their 21st pick?
They're going to get a skill position, wide receiver Jordan Addison. They need to get somebody who's going to contribute immediately, but then also have the longevity once Keenan is gone.
I feel it. I didn't like them going wide receiver. I still think that Joshua Palmer looks good, and Michael Williams, right? That's his name, Mike Williams, and Keenan Allen. I think they're set, but I understand them thinking about the future. But I have them taking Nolan Smith instead. 22 is the Ravens, Josh. Lamar Jackson situation remains tenuous. Maybe if Anthony Richardson continued to slide, he goes here, or maybe Lamar Jackson gets traded on draft day. But it seems most likely he'll just stay in Baltimore. What do you have them doing here at 22, Josh?
I have the third wide receiver in a row coming off the board, Quentin Johnson.
Nice little
just
run
somebody.
Here.
Yep, and that's exactly what I was thinking. This is when they start panic picking wide receivers.
Shit, we got to get our guy. We got to get one of them. I have them taking Deonte Banks. Josh, moving on to the Vikings. I'll let you go first, and then I'll opine a bit. It'll take a little bit longer, but we do need to get out of here. Minnesota Vikings, what are they doing?
I had them taking the milkman, Will Levis. Just because if that's who they're mocking to trade up for, then go ahead, take him at this point if he's still there. But I do think that realistically they'll trade back. But yeah, Will Levis, give him some opportunity to develop behind the other milkman of whiteness, Kirk Cousins.
Dude, I think what you're saying makes sense if Will Levis makes it this far. Maybe even if Will Levis, slides a bit, we maybe trade up to 16, 20, whatever, to try and get him, depending on how much capital we want to expend. But I'm okay with Hendon Hooker here. I have them technically taking Miles Murphy in the mock we did. But I think the most realistic scenario is we trade back. I think if we traded back to 26 through 29, we could still get Hendon Hooker and just pick up, maybe a third-round pick or something just to go back a few spots. But I have us taking Miles Murphy. And that was actually the last mock pick I made, so I'll just very quickly rapid-fire you to end the round here, Josh, because I don't have anything to say. Jacksonville Jaguars, 24, go.
Offensive lineman, Darnell Wright.
25, New York Giants.
Cornerback, Cam Smith.
26, Cowboys.
Defensive lineman, Brian Bresee.
27, Beals.
Linebacker, Jack Campbell. Just sounds like a Bills name.
28, Bengals.
Running back, Bijan Robinson.
29, Saints from San Fran through Miami.
Dalton Kincaid, tight end.
All right, 30, the Super Bowl loser, Eagles.
Running back, Jahmyr Gibbs.
And then 31, the last pick of the first round because the Miami Dolphins were stupid and got their pick taken away for potential collusion. Chiefs are taken.
Edge rusher, Miles Murphy.
And that ends the first round, everybody. How beautiful. I got to go back to our sheet now. Will the Vikings trade up and back for QB? Okay, we're moving on, and we'll be more quick here because I know we were quick last year, and I know neither of us want to give away our grand plans here because you and I have a draft on Sunday, actually. And then other people we play Dynasty with will be hearing as well. But
I have softball on Sunday.
Well, is it at noon? It sounds like it's going to be at 8 p.m., so I think you're fine.
It is.
I don't know, Josh. You can do whatever you want. Dynasty draft. So I again have the 101 pick, and it seems like Bijan is the slam dunk or top pick in a non-superflex league. So that's obviously going to be my pick for the 101 is Bijan, and I'm going to see if I can trade up with I forget who's next to me, Jesse, Brian, whoever. I'll see if I can trade up. I've got 5 picks in the first round or 6 picks in the first 11 or first 12, whatever it ends up being. I'm going to see if I can trade up and just take some top talent versus, I'm not going to say no to 6 rookies, but I feel like the draft class is a little top heavy, and so I want the best if I can. We'll see. But is there anyone from a fantasy perspective that has really jumped out to you, Josh? I'm sure you've looked into it really deeply.
Nope. I usually just wait till day of and then maybe take a couple of minutes beforehand. And
do a quick Google, be like, who is playing where?
Yep. Yep. I like to know who the footballs is.
All right. Okay. I mean, I think one of the most interesting players this year is Anthony Richardson because he is like a lot of people are saying he has the highest ceiling for a quarterback. I think the most safe quarterback in this class from a fantasy perspective is C.J. Stroud. But again, after what we saw of the athletic ability out of Anthony Richardson, it'll be interesting to see like which quarterback goes first in fantasy, especially in Superflex. Are people willing to take that risk and maybe have to sit Anthony Richardson for a year, depending on what team he gets drafted to? But certainly, I think most people would agree he has the most potential long-term in fantasy. But they said pretty much the same thing about Trey Lance, and that has not worked out at all so far. He's been sitting on my taxi squad for a couple years. So I just think that is interesting in the quarterback realm. And then, as we've seen with the wide receivers, it definitely draft capital and what team drafts them matters. Like, as an example, this isn't a quarterback, or this isn't a wide receiver, this is a running back. But when CEH got drafted to the Chiefs, he shot up everyone's draft board, and there's an overreaction. But if Chiefs take a receiver or tight end, they're automatically going to shoot up everyone's draft board. So that'll be interesting to see. And also, there's like 6 or 7 really good tight ends coming out of this draft. So are tight ends about to be fantasy relevant again? Who knows? But is anyone that much significantly better than the other? Probably not. So I think that'll be interesting to shake out. But since a lot of people probably haven't looked into the Dynasty rookies just yet, we will leave it there. One last thing, just sleepers. It'll be fun to see where Mo Ibrahim goes, because I believe he declared for the draft. I believe he's draft eligible. So we'll see if a Golden Gopher goes anywhere significant or if he's realistically just a backup for the rest of his days. Moving on, Josh, we have a segment here that we've just kind of held over, but we have it in the note sheet, so I'm just like Ron Burgundy. I'm obligated to read about it or read it. We sometimes we workshop some ideas for the upcoming season, and did he just erase it? Okay, there we go. Yeah, do you want to talk in here a little bit or no?
Yeah, so we can revisit some vaulted ideas. We did the stud duds. Obviously, we won't make decisions today. We're trying to fly through this to get out of here in an hour, and that's 5 minutes away. Stud dud. That was one of the things we've done in the past. The pick'ems with the lock and the upsets, and then also my effort. I feel like last year I kind of overdid the effort and maybe ease up a bit on it this year.
You're gonna need to walk it back, pal. You had some fans alarmed.
Yeah, no. So I did get some wellness checks to see if I was doing a little too well. Dynasty League ideas, maybe within the next 5 years. That's a long time. I might be dead by then. One is a champion-esque league, super league, super flex, slow draft, starting with the NFL draft of all the things. Brings a new vision after years of learning how to actually play Dynasty. One would be a best ball, cheaper because it's hard to get people to care, but sounds really fun. Sounds like 50% of both of our leagues that we're combining. And then would want the Hidden Oaks League, maybe Al's League, to end, and then combine the best of the two for the bigger league and let more casuals play the best ball Dynasty. Less hands-on in the season, same team building, investment otherwise.
Yeah, those were obviously my ideas, but Josh just read through them. Just to go back to the original ones, like we want to. Last year, we really, I mean, I guess I don't know if it was a conscious effort for you. It was 100% a conscious effort for me. I really pulled back on most of the requests for fan interaction because I feel like we had just asked so much for so long. Maybe we had burnt some people out, or maybe just the ideas we had for fan interactions were stale. And so next year, we're gonna try and ramp up the fan interaction again, but try and be smart about it and keep it football related. Like we love the fave, those who will not be named. I think that was a good segment, but it just got so far away from sports, it almost felt like we were doing two different things or, two different podcasts at times. So we'll have to just see how we can best target fan interaction while keeping the football base, because that's what you and I started. That's what you and I love. But then also I do have these new ideas for these new Dynasty leagues, and I don't think I would want to start more Dynasty leagues until, maybe someone wins our league and maybe Al's Empire League ends again, because I think they're both leagues, and I don't want to speak for Al, but at least the way I see it, I think both leagues have like a mix of casuals and more serious contenders. And I think you could make like a champions, or a super dynasty league that would be super fun. And then I've also always wanted to try that dynasty best ball. And like when we started our dynasty leagues, Josh, we had no idea what we were doing. We literally just threw it together one year. Now that we've been playing fantasy for 6-7 years, whatever it is, we actually kind of know what we're doing. And so, but you can't really just change a bunch of rules mid-dynasty because that's not fair to the people who are trying to win in 2 years in a row. So I have some ideas for the future, but I don't want to force them on people.
Eric's feels attacked.
Or I mean, we've done it too. Like we went from, regular PPR to tiered PPR. I know Connor had something to say about that. And that was fairly so. Like we have changed some rules for sure. But Eric's league is also not an Empire League where you have to win the pot back to back, or you have to win back to back years to get the big pot. Eric's league is just a straight dynasty. True. So, but no, those are some ideas I have for the grand future. But yeah, maybe if I'll try and coordinate with Al and just see if either of the leagues end in a year or two. Maybe we just pay people out to try and start a super league and then a best ball dynasty league. But the ideas sound fun to me, but I don't really have any concrete ideas for the show. Josh, I know you want to get out of here in time, so just moving on to the outro. I think we did it 2 years ago, but we didn't do it last year. Do we feel like we want to do an immediate draft reactions pod, even though it'll be all BS? Do we want to just come back and have a shorter, like 20, it will never be 20 minutes, that's a lie, but maybe a 30-minute pod just with you and I reacting to the draft, maybe focusing on the Packers and the Vikings stuff, which I know doesn't appeal to Brian, but will appeal to like the Als and the Jacks of the world and the Walters. Do we want to do an immediate post-draft pod reaction, or do we want to just wait and do another pod in May?
I think we could do a pod in May, just kind of let the dust settle.
Well, I mean, I guess
everybody's knee-jerk reaction is going to be, that sucks, or that's...
I guess either way, it'll be in May, to be clear. I probably wasn't clear about that, because, like, the draft is this weekend, so it'll be in May regardless. But it's just a matter of, do we want to be, like, next Tuesday, do we want to have a pod, or do we want to wait until later in May? Because if the goal is to do that monthly, it's just I was trying to gauge how quickly you want to react.
Yeah, we can give it, like, a week to settle.
All right, that will work for me potentially, although I might be mid-move at that point, but we'll figure it out. It's not a big deal. But I was just curious what you thought. Any other thoughts you want to leave with the folks before we head out here? The goal is to be, again, just for the fans, we want to have at least a monthly pod again until August once we ramp up the preseason stuff. So we want to keep the cobwebs off and just do at least one a month so we can remember what we're doing here. Because we're obviously rusty right now because we've been out for 3-4 months. So, but anything else you want to say to the fans out there, Josh, before we head out?
Don't boil your vegetables.
Can you explain that a little bit?
No, I just don't know. I just feel like it's an unnecessary thing to do.
All right, everyone. Well, we appreciate you so much for listening. Again, we would love if you could hop into the Discord. We would also love if you can leave us voicemails either at anchor.fm/hoodpod, or you can start sending them to me on Discord directly, as I understand it. So just add me as a friend on Discord, and you can send me voicemails that way, but something for us to explore in the future. But otherwise, we thank you so much for listening. We'd love to hear what your draft thoughts about what you think, or your thoughts on our thoughts are in the Discord. And I hope we're chatting along with each other on Thursday night and over the weekend. We love you, everybody. Goodbye. Come on, song, play. There we go.
Bye, friends. Go Pack.